Welcome everyone to our video and we're the last group and we are going to discuss and explain to you a little bit what is popular methodology. And first of all, I would like to introduce myself. Hello everyone, my name is Daphne and my classmates are Jason Hernandez and Jorge Jimenez, and you are going to see them during the video because they are going to provide you like some explanations and examples of different meanings that we should know as well. First of all, I would like to share with you in the subsections of how this video will be developed. Like for example, I will explain it to you like what is a method, what is a technique, procedure, and these important meanings the teacher should know in order to make their classes. And also I will provide another methods, some examples about techniques, and in my case of Jason, my classmate, he is going to explain a little bit about the FUR method. And my last classmate, that is Jorge, he is going to explain to you a little bit what is methodology. But of course, he is going to explain to you a little bit deeper this definition. And let's start with this video. Well, guys, the first definition that we have, what is an approach? Well, an approach is the way how things are done in the classroom and which provides the reason for doing them. But of course, the approach is all the theory that teachers should know in order to apply them. And of course, there is some characteristics that we should know, like for example, an approach describes you how the language is used and how is constituted in part interlock. When we talk the part, the interlock is how things are going to gather to be just one, to be as a whole. The second one we have, it describes how people acquire their knowledge of the language. And of course, when you know how people is going to acquire, you can predict if the language it will be like successful or not. And the last one we have is to make statements about the condition of the learning. It is something that I mentioned before. It will be predict you if the language will be successful or not. In the second definition, we have a method. Okay, the method is all the practical realization of an approach. As I mentioned before, the approach is all the theory, but in this case, you are going to apply it in your classes. In this section is where a teacher will define what kind of activities are going to use, which of them are useful or not. At the same time, the teachers will think what is going to be the teacher's role or the student's role that they really want. In the other part, at the same way, the teachers are going to think which materials are good to support the lectures, and at the same time, she or he is going to organize how they are going to use the syllables that they will provide in their classes. And the third definition, we have what is a procedure? Well, procedure is the sequence of how techniques will be applied. It is like an example is when you say, well, guys, first do this and then you do that. You will follow like in a sequence, like doing step by step how your class is going to be developed. In this case, it's like, for example, you're going to see like the sequence of the plot and then you're going to put a video. And what are you going to say to your students? Okay, guys, we're going to see a video and please pay attention or something important things that you should consider. And then after watching the video, we're going to make a round table and discuss what you saw or what are your personal perspective. And then you will say, okay, guys, please try to make an open mind. Try to stick some images or draw something in order to explain the 5 steps of the plot. In this case, we're going to give a like, please guys do this and then you do that. It's all the procedures that you are going to develop during the class. I have a quote here that it says, "Is smaller than a method, it is bigger than a technique." Well, but what is a technique? We have it from here. A technique describes the procedure section. When I say the procedure section is, a technique is like more meaning, no more meaning, it's like how you describes something in a specific way. Is like giving a specific explanation the first section that you do in a procedure. Like for example, if you are putting a video, you're going to explain which technique are you going to develop. It's like giving like a specific definition or one section of the procedure. I want to say this one. But there are other techniques that you should use in classes. There are some examples I have from here. The first one, we have the silent view. In the silent view is like all the videos or film materials that you are going to use in your classes, but of course, they're not going to have a sound or audio. The students just have to pay attention. Some of them have like an information where the students have to read, or subtitles. There are other videos that they don't have like information subtitled or something like that. They just paid attention, and at the end they have to analyze their perspective about what they saw. And the last one, we have another example that is called the finger technique. I would like to turn on my camera to explain a little bit how it works. And well, in the finger technique is so simple. You are going to use your fingers to explain something or provide example. It is, for example, if I want to explain to you how to make contractions, like for example, if I say, okay guys, we're going to learn the negative form of the verb to be. And well, if you have is, that is the verb to be is, plus not, we have the negative way of the verb to be. That is not, is not. But what about if we put it together? We made a contraction, and how it sounds, isn't. This is a way how the finger technique works. There are other ways how you can apply this technique. Like for example, you can provide your students like some images, and you will say, well guys, first, this man is brushing his teeth. Then, and you show your finger and you say, then the woman is taking a shower with her baby. And you, well, third, they are in the bathroom. And fourth, they are a happy family. This kind of stuff, and you will provide and show your fingers in order to explain something. This is how the finger technique works. And well, we have another section in this place. This is something I would like to consider because it says, in popular methodology, all methods, procedures, and techniques influence the current state of English language teaching. This is something I would like to consider because not all methodology works at the same way. Why? Because there are methodologies that first, it starts like as a procedure or technique, and the end as a method. There are others that works as a procedure and then a method. This is like a different way of mixing and to have them. But in this case, please consider that the popular methodology, methods, procedure, and techniques will influence the current state of the English language. And well, we have another section that is grammar, translation, direct method, and auto-linguism. And well, the first definition that we have, this concept is really important, that is about grammar translating. Well, I'm not sure if you remember when you were in high school, grammar translating method were like so normal, because your teacher just give it to you like an explanation how to use grammar. And of course, you did not interact like really good with, with the language. Okay. The grammar translation method was in the 19th century, like a little bit at the beginning, and it was the most common way how learning a foreign language was, like through giving like you are sorry, a print list of vocabulary where the students use a dictionary, and then the students try to look for in the dictionary what is the meaning. I'm not sure if you remember what is happening with grammar translating. Some cases I consider this is not good because you're not going to interact at all with the language. There are some features that you should take into account that, for example, the main point of grammar translation is just try to make in a correctly way your sentences, that of course using the grammar. The second feature is that speaking skill were not meaningful. Sorry, is not meaningful. I'm not sure if you remember that, for example, when you were in high school, most of the time the teacher will say, okay guys, please let me know how to say in English, yo estoy feliz. And well, the student made this process in their mind, well, si yo en español, en inglés es I, okay, I. El verb to be, the I, cero estar is am, okay, I am, I have this part. And then the student tried to think, okay, happy, feliz is happy in English. Okay, teacher, I got it. Is I'm happy. And of course, the students were like a little bit so slower in this section because they first think in their mother language and then make this process of like building correctly their sentences, and then they give it to you like the final product that is the correct sentence. And of course, what happened? Most of the time, the students were not like so fluent when they are talking in English because they made that process, and not all the time they were okay. I like watching the movie or something like that. This is something that most I consider not all the students have like this confidence of talking in English because for them they were so difficult first like thinking their modern language, then in translating, and then given to you like the definition in English were so difficult. And I consider nowadays I have so happy because teachers try to give it the students the opportunity to think just in English, because in that way the students will be like so fluent when they are talking, and it will be so good seeing this type of students when you are discussing something, because they have a really this like confidence to be open and talk what they really want. Sometimes, of course, they make some mistakes, but they are going to correct themselves how they were learning. And the other one is about the pronunciation. Most of the time, the pronunciation were not like so meaningful. Why? Because as you remember when you were in high school, for example, the main goal was that the students structure correctly their sentences. But what about if a student didn't not say it like a really good way? Like, for example, in the word, I will give it to you an example, like, yo estoy pensando en inglés porque me gusta. And the student will say, I'm thinking in English because I like it. They say like no really good, they say that like not given to you like really good intonation, just like try to say how they think it works, or how many times like the sentences, it is like how they think. If they are saying that this word is writing in this way, they will, sorry, is going to be in the same way in English. And of course, you know, in written English is not the same when you're speaking, because there is some things that will change in, like in the pronunciation, like the long and short vowels and this kind of stuff that have different pronunciation. In this case, the students will make like a lot of, will make a lot of mistakes in their language. This is something I don't like it, but of course, if you try to explain to your students, well, I think English is important for something, but giving to them like a really good pronunciation, they are going to avoid these future mistakes that they are going to do it. And it is something interesting, but of course, in a grammar translation, this is not meaningful for them. They just want the students have the main goal, that is just having the sentence correctly. It doesn't matter if they are pronouncing something wrong. In the third one is the currency is necessary. Why the currency? Because the students have to be closed on what they are translating. Of course, there are some words that they are not going to say it in a correct way, but of course, the currency, try to say in a correct way, be like so specific on what they are talking is so important for them, and that's it. And we have another one, let me second. The other one, we have the direct method. Well, the direct method appeared at the end of the 19th century. And well, okay, this method was changing the way how you learn a language. In this method, the teacher and students are open to speak about what they studied before, like for example, grammar. They studied and they speak about it. And then what happened, the teacher will provide like some objects or physical materials that students can build like strong images in order to get meanings. This is something, of course, translators in that time were not important. Just try the students to have a meaningful learning, just using physical objects. Then we have another one that is called, let me second, is autolinguism. Well, autolinguism is so interesting for me. Actually, I'm not sure if you know that ad intensa use it. And well, I would like to share with you a lot of my experience was. Well, but first of all, I would like to share what is autolinguism. Well, autolinguism uses stimulus to build positive reinforcements in the students in order to make positive habits. In this learning is based on continuous drills or phrases or sentences. Then those sentences will have changes in order that the students know when and how to place like the changes in order to avoid mistakes. But of course, the teacher will give it them like some examples or give them like a little bit clouds to make better their sentences. But we have an example from here that the first one is, the teacher will say, okay, there is a cup of tea on the table. And well, the teacher will say, please repeat. And the student will say it again, there is a cup of tea on the table. And then what happened? The teacher will change one word and she will say, well, spoon. In this part, the student will analyze where to place the word spoon. And they say, well, there is a spoon on the table. The teacher will give it again another word, and they have to place it again in an ordered position. Book, the teacher will say. What does the student have to do? There is a book on the table. And then the teacher will say, on the chart, in this section is like a little bit tricky because the student have to analyze if it was not just one word, it is on the chart where they have to place it. Most of the time they have many mistakes, but of course the teacher will correct them, and then the teacher will provide like the correct way to how to do it, and the student will do it really good in the next time. In this case, on the shirt, they know that they have to place the word at the table. They will place it for on the shirt, and they will say there is a book on the shirt. In this way, the students will have a lot of repetition and repetition in order to make like sentences. Then we have the other one is about preparation, practice, and production. That is the PPMP. It is the communicative language learning. Okay, in this case, first of all, we have some procedures for the PP. The first one is the presentation. What the students have to do is, or what the teachers have to do in a presentation. Well, we have from here, in this procedure, a teacher plays a situation to contextualize what is going to be teaching. Then the students will practice repeating the students and sentences and phrases. Okay, let me a second to turn on my camera on again. Okay. Well, in this section is like, for example, the teacher is going to give them like a scenario. In this scenario, she is going to show to them like a situation, a place, and she is going to say questions like, please guys, let me know where does this picture take place? And well, the students should know how to organize their ideas, and they will say, well, in a pool. And that's it. And then the teacher can say, well, guys, please let me know what is this man doing? And then the students will provide a sentence. He is sitting on a chair watching their kids or something like that. They are going to have like this sequence. And then we have another one, let me a second, that is called, okay, I have from here an example, sorry, that is this part. This is the teacher will provide like a situation, and the students have to engage a little bit with on what they are going to learn. Then we have the practice. What do students have to do in the practice? This is so simple. In the practice, they are going to provide like they are going to use what they know before. Okay, if they know how to use properly the grammar, they know the vocabulary, they are going to use it like making sentences. They can do it in pairs, or the teacher will ask like the class, well guys, please tell me what does the, in this example. Okay guys, tell me tell me what is the policeman doing? And then one student can say, well, teacher, I have the answer. And he is keeping an eye many strangers on the park or something like that. In this case, the students will practice. They can do it with the teacher, and at the same time, they can do it like in pairs or in groups. And we have the final procedure, that is production. In the production, the students, this is called imitative creativity. In this step, the students are asked to use the language acquired, but of course, they are going to use it using like real situations, real context. It is, for example, if I mentioned before, I can say like the students, please let me know, what do you think your mother are doing? Sorry, see, like what are your mother doing now, or something like that. And the students will try to use it with a real situation. At the same time, it will be so useful when they try to tell you stories about something that happened to them or something like that. They are going to use their language, all the acquired, like vocabulary, grammar, all the things that they learned for the class. And then we have PPP and alternative. The first one, this one, it assumes that the students will starting that they will not have like a really specific knowledge, is like you're going to start from zero. The other one is like the sentence based on theorems. And the third one is immediate production. The first one we have from here is the deep end strategy. In the deep end strategy, I would like to explain to you a little bit. This one is students are encouraged to immediate production. It is that a student is having struggles with something in a specific, the teacher have to return back to the practice or production to reinforce the student's weaknesses. It is, for example, if a student is having some struggles or problems or something that you explained before, your duty is to return and try to reinforce what the student is having issues. Reinforce like their weaknesses. We have another one that is called the ESA. The letter E is engage. The word engage means all the facts are important. All the facts or facts that you're going to do in your class are so important to have a success, because the students are emotionally engaged with what is going on. What is going on when I refer is what is going to happen with their language. They are emotionally engaged in this section. When we talk about the letter S, that means study, is when the teaching and learning elements are going to be constructed for something. Okay, the learning and the teaching is going to construct something in a specific. It might be like a goal, it might be a task, or it might be something else. It can be sentences, it can be tasks, or something like that. Whatever you wanted or whatever you are doing in your classes. The letter A is about activation. Okay, in this state is how the students are engaged to use all what they learned before it in your class. All that you teach them, they are going to use it. And we have another section that is called the boomerang. Give me a second to look for, I don't know what is happening. This is the essay, yeah. Okay, we have the essay procedure. Okay, the boomerang. This is something easy to understand about the boomerang. Okay, in case of the boomerang, it is used to engage a student before asking them to do something. As you can see in this image, and the boomerang is the second image. In the boomerang, the teacher first have to engage, then they are going to activate, and then the students will study. In the case of the ES8, first, it is so important to this is considered the first image. First is engage, then study, then the activation. And then we have the other one that is called the patchwork. In the patchwork, it is something a little bit crazy because it doesn't have like a really organized procedure, because for example, maybe as you can see in the arrows, first you can start with engage, then with the activate, then with the study, and then you can come back to an engage again. There are others, as you can see in that part. First, you can engage, then you can activate, and then you can engage. And then to the engage, you will study. This is something really interesting. There are another example from here that first you can engage, then you can study, and that's it. Well, This is something like it doesn't have like a really organized way of sequencing things, but it's a little bit how it works. And well, guys, thank you so much to seeing my explanation. And well, my classmates are going to be the next one to explain a little bit more about this topic, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, I have to present the second part of this presentation, and I have to talk about the four methods. So let's get started. Well, four methods, basically, it's a method developed in the 70s and 80s. It's not common to see them, but they can be used in mainstream teaching. So now I was investigating about the mainstream teaching, things related to this concept. And according to the information I found on internet, this type of teaching, it's basically when students with special needs are placed in general classrooms. So, um, you know, this kind of students, they have their own classroom because they're special needs. But with this teaching method, they are placed with the normal guys. Let's say like this, like normal guys in short periods of time. So yeah, so let's continue. Then we have the community language learning. In this method, the role of the teacher is being a helper for the students to correct uh, all those mistakes. The idea with these mistakes, or what the teacher can do with these mistakes, is that they can record the mistakes in order to analyze them. So basically, the role of the teacher in this concept makes students feel more confident about themselves. Well, then we have Suggestopedia. This method was created by, let me see, by Georgi Lozanov. Difficult name to remember. And it's addressed the physical place. Um, the physical place in which students have the lessons. Well, the physical place is basically the institution, the high school, the school where students attend to of course learn different things. So the idea with this basically is to highlight that the students need to be relaxed and comfortable. So the idea is that the students in that physical place, high school um, institution, is that they can be relaxed and comfortable with the place and the environment, basically. Then we have the community language learning, and basically this concept tries to remind that the role of the teachers in classrooms is to facilitate the learning process and help students with what they want to say or do. This also helps students to think about what they are learning. So yeah, that would be the community language learning. And then finally, we have the communicative language teaching. Um, well, yeah, let's let's say like this. It's one of the things, or like one of the things this teaching method focuses the most is on how the language is used. By saying this, the idea is not to be concentrated only on on grammar as usually happens, but also being concentrated on the spoken functions and written grammar. Um, well, some activities such as role plays or simulations, can be used in this method, since these activities are related, to realistic communication. Something additional to what I just said, in Costa Rica, we have the traditional model that, in my personal opinion, is not good because, teachers, what teacher does is, yeah, what teacher do is to, explain just theory and theory and theory, but the idea is to perform different activities because that's the way in which students can really learn something. Like I can know how to, I don't know how to use this grammar structure, but when I have to speak, I'm not going to be able to say that because it's totally different, the theory with the practice. But well, it's something that we are fighting in this country, that traditional model. Uh, but yeah, let's continue with the presentation with the next slide. Well, we have this chart, as you can see, non-communicative activities and communicative activities. And basically what we can see here are some differences or characteristics of um, non-communicative activities and the communicative activities. So, well, as you can see, or well, in my personal opinion, something important to highlight is that a student can develop more their skills with communicative activities, but but it depends on each person. Why? Because as I said, in my personal opinion, I learn better if I talk to someone else. If I keep in touch with people who speak English as their first language, but probably there are people who learn better something, by writing or reading. So that's why it depends on each person because we all learn in different ways basically. But yeah, so let's continue with the next slide. Well, following the same topic that we were seeing, the four methods. We have task-based learning and well, task based learning is what this does is to make the performance of different tasks central to the learning process. Um, that means that the students are likely able to learn a language by completing tasks in the same way as if they were focusing only on theory aspects. Well, it's kind of similar to what I just said. Let me give you an example. I can tell you how to drive. Like I know how to drive, but I'm talking theoretically, but I haven't had the opportunity to practice that theory. So that doesn't mean that I know how to drive. So that's why I said that we need to perform the activities to really learn because with the theory I cannot do like so much. So well, that's why we have to perform the activities basically to learn better and to acquire experience and to know how to deal with that. But yeah, let's continue. That was just an example. Following the same the task-based learning, in this method, as its name says, a lot of tasks are used. So the idea is to give the students tasks to to be performed. And once they are all done, what the teacher has to do is, well, of course, to come and to start, discussing about the language used, or making correction. Basically, what they do in a final review when task is performed. Like, guys, how was it? It was difficult. It was easy. Let's check the answers, and those kind of things. And well, moving on to the last slide that I have to present. Well, basically the task-based learning is divided in three parts: the pre-task, the task cycle, sorry, and language focus. And well, we have pre-task. Basically, what the teacher does is to look at the topic um, that will be seen, and this has to be, of course, with the entire class. And the idea is to help the students to clarify any doubts before starting the task. It's pretty simple. Then we have the task cycle, and this is the stage in which the students start doing, the task either in pairs, or it can also be in small groups, while the teacher, is checking and monitoring that everything that the task goes well. And well, finally, we have the language focus, and basically this is an stage in which students check and talk about specific features of the task. And basically, in other words, it's when they check if the task was performed correctly or not, or actually the teacher, at this point, the teacher has to correct all the mistakes, made by the teachers. And the teacher has to ask for, any different doubts that a student could have. So basically, it's similar to what I just said. This is the part, like the final review. Once the activity is done, uh, it's like the final review. Like, let's check the answers, and was it good? Was it easy? Was it difficult? And basically the final review. So well, this is um everything from my part. Now my classmate Jorge is going to continue with the presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Jorge and I'm going to talk about the lexical approach and some other insights regarding to the different methodologies that we can use when we are teaching English as a second language. So first of all, to start with the lexical approach, language consists not of traditional grammar and vocabulary, but in the other hand, often it's more often to related to multi-word prefabricated chunks. So in some scenarios, we have those type of idioms, collocations, fixed semi-phrases that we use in order to develop our language. For example, if you see that there is a bunch of people and they are shouting and they are screaming, instead of just remembering those specific words for the action that they are making, it's very usual to say, oh, they go bananas. And it's something related to they went into a state that they were almost crazy, right? So with this kind of different idioms, different fixed and semi-fixed phrases that we can perceive when we are talking with some other people, we can interact with language in a more integral way. Why? Because we are not bounded by the grammar, the vocabulary, in specific from a book, but we are exposing ourselves and our students with vocabulary, sorry, and more information about the world and how it actually works. It's the lexical approach is something more personal. The person by itself, the individual, gets more affected about the surrounding and the context that um, involves him and overwhelm him in order to learn that language in an integral way, like in more specific way. The fluency with the lexical approach resides in the acquisition of those sentences and phrases. So, more that you interact with your surroundings, with your society, with the people at work, with the people at school, more that you involve yourself with this context, more you are going to learn a second language. Why? Because the exposure activates different parts of the brain that will help you to communicate. Um, Communication is something very important for humans, and learning a second language will guide you to a process of develop those skills required to be more fluent when you are speaking with someone. There are teachers and students in dialogue together. So part of the lexical approach is to leave the books aside. Why? Because they're full of grammar, vocabulary, sentence patterns, and most of the time, yes, it works. It provides you sentences, but you cannot relate that to a specific context. The significant meaning of those words just get into the papers of the book, but not in the person interest. And that is important to understand. When something matters for you, you will be learning more because there is a significant knowledge in that specific uh, knowledge that you are learning. But if you just are reading a book and you don't care about the book, you don't care about what you want to express in the book, you are just reviewing information, and most of the time you are not exposing yourself, because sometimes, not in all the scenarios of course, but sometimes a book is kind of boring for many people, and this affects the way people learn. Okay, the materials for this type of classrooms using dialogue as a way of learning. So instead of just sitting there having a lot of books, having a lot of chairs together, and just filling sheets of paper of practice, that doesn't allow the student to expose themselves to the language. But with round tables where they can share their ideas, their experiences, everything from their lives, that creates a dialogue that at the end, that uh, few words will be more meaningful than just a bunch of words in a book. So that's how the language is evolving in a way that you can connect with people, and that will create a significant learning in the process of teaching and learning as a student. More speaking, less fill in the blanks. So as I mentioned before, a lot of sheets of paper were used in the past, but nowadays some more conversational classes have been made and planned in order to acquire that knowledge that is necessary to survive in the outside world. At high school, when we are at high school teaching, we are kind of in a bubble. But when that bubble explodes and you have to go outside, you realize that the world is really big. So at the end, you have to expose yourself if you want to succeed, if you want to go further, right? So starting with a good basis, when you speak more and do the written part, of course is important, because you need to check yourself if you are using the language in a proper way. But leaving it aside, you can try to develop more skills, communication skills, not just language, but how to communicate yourself, how to express your ideas in another language. That is the most important. And how you do it? Just speaking, just trying to interact with others. That is the most important. The exposure of the students to the language can produce a better understanding of it. What happens if I have a book and the book provides me with vocabulary and sentences, and they provide me with grammar, and they provide me with adjectives and nouns, but at the end I cannot relate that to the real world. So if I'm not expose myself as a learner, and if I don't expose my students to the language as a teacher, I am failing. Why? Because they cannot relate the information that you are providing in another language with the real world that it's outside. They cannot merge those ideas in order to create something specific. For example, if I put an apple here and I told you this is an apple, you will remember the color, you will remember the smell of the apple, okay? But if I show you a book with, I don't know, 5, 7 types of fruit, you will just select one and, oh, that's an apple, okay? So for basic learners, probably will be hard to relate the information with the information that they acquired through the books. But if you show real meaning, you show real materials, and they can expose themselves to that knowledge directly and relate what they're seeing, smelling, tasting, they can relate that information, and the language will be more acquired or better acquired um, into their brains, into our brains, in general. Okay, so that is important. Exposure is very important. It's important to understand that to choose a methodology, there are as many teachers as learners in the world. So most of the time, we don't have the chance to cover all the things that we need to cover. And that is because, as I mentioned before, as many teachers, as many learners in the world. There are different students that receive a different kind of education in school, and when they arrive to high school, they just collide with the information they have. And you as a teacher, you have to adapt yourself in order to create a specific plan for them together to learn. But sometimes that doesn't work. And why it doesn't work? Because we are following strict rules in order to apply a planning, like a specific information for a specific grade for a specific students. And they provide us with that information as a general when it shouldn't be, okay? Cultural differences could lead to a different approach or methodology. We have several things that differ from one side of the country to the other side. Let's go to the Caribbean, for example. They are they are surrounded by a different context than the people that lives in Cartago, for example. So we have to merge the information from those cultural sides in order to provide a good education, in order to provide a good understanding of the language. We have to identify which clues we can use in order for them to interact with the information that we are providing, and a way that they can learn together, but in their own rhythm. That is the most important thing. Even if we are having a different lesson provided by map, provided with all the information about the specific points that we have to handle in that week, for example, we must create our own way of teaching and provide our students with a personalized way to learn to. They can do it, and you as a teacher, you can do it. It's not that you have to change the whole planning, but you just can change the way you address that plan for specific students. and it's something that it's hard at the beginning, but if you get creative and you create that synergy between the students, they probably will learn better if they are interacting themselves together. There are two sides, Western and Eastern. In both sides, we learn completely different English. It's not the same process of learning, for example, for North America, Canada, and United States than we have in the other side, London and other English countries, like sorry, like Great Britain or I don't know, Switzerland, for example, that they do speak English too. Okay, so they have a different approach to the learning process, and they provide different ideologies in order to address the education of a second language, and not just English, but other different languages too. So it's important to take that into account. Most of the time, we are going to have people that lives in our own country, so we know about the society, we know about the ideology that we are handling. But if for some reason you go to another country, you will identify that education will be different because of the cultural differences. And if you go to the other side of the pond, you will identify that everything is completely different too. So it's important to take that into account when you are teaching English, and not just to expose your students to a specific English, for example, just Western, but you can also provide information about Eastern cultures. For example, that a biscuit is the same as a cookie in the United States, that the the Britain, the British people, they say water instead of water, and those differences are necessary in order to produce a good understanding of the language. Because at the end, it's not that they will just speak with North American, United States Americans, Canadians. Okay, they are not just speaking with those people, but they probably in a future will speak with someone from Switzerland, London. Okay, so it's important to take that into account. Now, there is a process to have a bargain, a post method, and a context sensitivity. This is something that you have to dialogue with your students. There is a bridge that you have to create in order to provide the good information. It's not that you are just going to enter into a school and you will say, okay, this is my context and that's it. I will create a plan for that. But you have to create a bridge between you and your students and create a methodological belief um, in with the students' preferences. Why? Because at the end, they are the ones that are learning, and you have to adapt yourself and your teaching to their students, not the students to your way of teaching. It's a bargain. It's not that you have to forget everything you know about teaching. It's about to try to adapt and evolve in order to provide a good understanding of the topics that you are teaching and a good understanding about the language that you are sharing with them. The context will define the method. And this is very important because most of the time we don't take into account the context in order to create our lessons. And it's important to take it into account, because as more as we use the context, more they will relate the information with the language that you are teaching. Okay, so for me as a teacher, it's one of the most important things to get surrounded about the context vocabulary so they can understand the meaning of those words in an easier way. Okay, so as the if we are teaching in a specific context, for example, I don't know, a school in Punta Arenas, as an example. Okay, I need to understand the context. I need to understand the culture of the place. I need to understand the ideology of the place in order to create my method to teach these students. Probably they will have previous knowledge from school, and they probably have previous knowledge if they went into an institute, but still I have to create something related to the context that they are living, to provide a good understanding of the language that I am teaching. Okay, that is the most important thing for the lexical. Now, making choices. We have two sides of the coin, and at the end, it's about teaching the students a second language. The effect and the input, those are the two sides of the coin. Affect, students learn better when they are engaged with what is happening. So we have here the students that are on a side of the room, and they just love to get exposed to the language. They practice, they just want to share with you uh, stories about their lives in another language because they like that way of learning. They like to be exposed to language, that you speak with them in English, that you share your experiences in English, and they gathered all that knowledge using the context that surround them. Now we have the other side of the coin, and those are the students that needs constant exposure to the language, otherwise they will not learn how to use it. And in this case, it's not exposure by itself around the context, but exposure using audiovisual resources, for example, books, images, cards, all this type of information that can provide them like with a guidance, so they can study and re-study and reread all the information once, twice, three times, okay, in order for them to get all that knowledge. And it's important for us as a teacher to understand that they both exist and collide in a classroom. So we have to make a choice, not to divide them, because that is not correct. They must be together and learn together, but how to address those students, how to select the correct information for those ones who learn different. Okay, now as a finish this section of methodology, it's important to take into account, if you are a teacher, you have to adapt yourself to your students, not backwards. And it's important for us to take in consideration all the context, all the surroundings, all the society and the culture that we have around our students. Why? Because that will help us to develop a correct method, a right method to teach them. At the end, in order to pick the correct method, we have to provide insight, integral information. And to do so, we have to expose and we have to adapt ourselves. A teacher, it doesn't mean, if I am a teacher, it doesn't mean that I will not learn more from something. It means that I am able to share my information with someone else. But as humans, we never stop learning. And I think that is the best ability as a species we have. Okay. So thank you to Daphne and Jason for sharing their knowledge. I hope you are really appreciated. And if you have doubts, please ask us. I know it was a very long presentation, but I hope you like it. We did it with a lot of effort. Um, and nothing else. Have a good night.